Okay, so I was asked, hey, Frank, can you make a video of what a good budget looks like? Now, I say good budget because some people like simplicity. I like detail because we can learn from detail. When you look at very generalized budgets, they can give you an idea, but it's hard to really learn what is it that made costs go too high, too low, sideways, whatever on a project. Because every budget you do and every project you do, you can go back to that information and learn a lot from that budget after the project is done. And I will tell you that is very valuable information as you move forward and see what things are doing, and pricing between labor, materials, and all this sort of thing. So I'm going to show you our budget. Our budget is pretty line item detailed because everything on here is the result of real world experience. We started with a simpler budget like most people do, and as you do more projects, you realize this is insufficient for all the surprises, all the things that come up, and all, wild things. So this budget, you could use it on something as simple as a cosmetic rehab all the way through new construction and everything in between, because we've done it, whether pop to top, additions, full guts, full remodels, right, and on and on. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of walk you through ours, and we're going to actually build one out just so you could see what it's doing and why it's doing it. And we can't go through every line item, of course, that would take quite a while, but we're just going to kind of throw something together here so you could see. Before we get into the categories, I want to show you this at the top. By default, we have a working budget. So we might walk out and say, oh, it's, let's use the example of 1,500 square feet. And let's say we want to refloor the whole house, and it's going to be approximately $5 a square foot. Let's just as a general example. So we'll put in $7,500 for flooring, and we'll put that in here in a little bit. But what it's going to do is it's going to automatically add a contingency. And our default is 20%. Now, if we need to make it higher, we can, but that's our default, 20%, because things happen, right? And we've gotten to where we used to absolutely micromanage these things. And if you micromanage it, can you get it down to well below 20%? Absolutely. The best project we did, I think we were over budget by like 2.5%. And we've actually had projects go under budget. That's uncommon, but it does happen. It's not impossible, we'll put it that way, but it's not easy. And so the contingency protects you before you even write the check. It protects you before you even borrow money from the lender. Okay. We learned a lot of things the hard way, and I will tell you that is worthwhile protection to have. Okay. And as we put stuff in, it's going to show you how much is spent, how much is remaining, how much spent and what percentage is spent, right? I'm not going to draw out the full thing in the draws today. You can see there's 10 draws by default on ours. We're not that, I'm going to save that for another video sometime later. For today, we're just going to kind of build it out. And what we've got here is we've got a few sections. First, we have the site and prep work. This for us is anything that happens before construction actually begins. You'll see things on here like permitting. You'll see things like architectural drawings. Maybe there's like a performance bond because maybe you're doing right-of-way work. That's where that came from. And there's other reasons. That's just one, right? But it's all pre-construction. Okay. Now, house construction. This is the vertical. This is the vertical, and this is going to be real important when you see how we separate this out later. But this is anything happening with the actual structure. Okay, anything happening with the actual structure. Um, so it was very simple, right? So that's the structure. So if you handle the structure, what comes next? Naturally, what's outside the structure? The exterior grounds. This is my landscaping, my fence. Maybe I got termite bait stations, pressure washing concrete, whatever. Okay. Then of course I have utilities because you gotta have power, gotta have water, cut the yard, those sorts of things. But then we have soft costs. This is important because a lot of lenders will actually not, they'll actually not cover soft costs. So you might go to a hard money lender and they'll say, yeah, we'll do 100% of the rehab, 90% of the purchase, very common terms. And then you give them the budget and they're like, oh yeah, but we don't cover the soft costs. They don't all do it. So all of a sudden you're responsible for another five, ten, $20,000 that you weren't planning on. Okay, so this is an important section. Okay, and then you're going to see it's going to total these, and then it's going to give us the cost per square foot for the vertical, the actual construction happening in the structure, and then for the entire project, which will include the landscaping, the soft cost, the permitting, all these other sections, utilities. Okay, because those are real costs too that went into the project. They just weren't part of the actual vertical house, so to speak. So let's build it out. You'll notice I have 1,500 square feet and I have it written 2 times because we have 2 calculations. So we're just going to do a hypothetical, let's call it a cosmetic rehab with moving a couple of walls and say a roof. Okay, so a little bit more in cosmetic, and we're going to move some walls and put a roof on the thing. And because we're moving some walls, the municipality needed some permit. It was like, we got to permit this thing, right? Can't just go moving a wall, especially if it's structural. Okay. So let's say we hired an architect and let's say it was a simple job. So they charged us $1,500. We had to get an engineer's blessing. And so let's say we paid him $750. We then had to print these prints, right, and submit them. And then we had to go get a building permit, right? And so let's say they charge us 500. So now you'll notice right off the bat, we've allocated almost $3,000 before we build anything. And right off the bat, it's adding 20%. Okay. So that we're handling these things up front. Now, to be clear, these are all hypothetical numbers. We're not going to give too much effort into how accurate this is. And by the way, depending on where the project is located, these numbers can be wildly different anyway, from city to city, area to area, and so forth. Okay. Now we're going to get into the actual construction. Let's say I wanted to do a clean after all the framing and sheetrock was done before I did finishes. So I brought in a construction clean. So let's say we did 500, which is not the same as a final clean, which let's say that's another 500. Let's say we used 4 dumpsters for the project at 500 each. So I'll put that in there. We have working bathrooms in the house. We don't need portable restrooms. We don't have to take out trees. We're going to keep it simple. Okay. We did some wood framing though, right? We moved some walls. So let's say we got charged that. We put on a roof. Let's say that cost 10 grand. Let's say we touched up the decks and porches. We did some exterior trim work. We did a bunch of interior trim work. Um, Windows, all that was good. All that was good. Let's say we threw a new front door on. Let's say we did 5 interior doors. So let's say windows were good, garage doors, openers, all it's good. We did an electrical inspection, and I'm going through this quick, right? Because we're not trying to create a real rehab here. We want to show you the budget. Okay, let's say we did just a little plumbing touch up. We put in a new water heater. Let's say we just did some HVAC service to make sure everything was good. Let's say that was 500. Uh, Actually, well, I would say even less than that. I'd say 350. We didn't demo anything. We didn't have to get into any of this. We put in a little bit of insulation for whatever reason. Well, let's say we put some gutters on it to complement the new roof. So let's say we spent a grand on that. Siding was good. We put in some new walls, so we got some new sheetrock. So we're going to put a little bit in the drywall category. We talked about the flooring. And let's say we did all hardwoods because that's the mood we were in that day. Let's say we painted the interior and exterior. And that, by the way, we also have a finishes sheet, which you'll notice there's a tab here for finishes, and there's a whole, like, again, similar type thing, but a whole bunch more, and where we would literally break down everything we're buying for finishes. For the sake of this, we're going to keep this real simple, and let's just say we spent 10 grand on it. And of course, there's always a handyman. There's always something you were getting a handyman to do something at the end. Very common. Um, And then, and we've even seen where we've had to go rent a vehicle at the last minute because of, contractor thing broke. They're on site. They need big stuff. All of a sudden, we got to stop what we're doing, go get a vehicle, bring them stuff, deliver it. Like, it's crazy. Crazy things happen in construction, right? But now we go outside. Let's say outside we did a little bit of landscaping. Let's say we spent 3 grand on it. Let's say we did a little bit of fence work and we put in some bait stations. Okay, then of course there's utilities, right? And let's say it's summer so that the HVACs are running, so it's going to be a little bit warm, so our power bill is going to be a little high. Let's say it's an all electric house, so we just have water, we're cutting the grass, um, and then you get into these soft costs, right? Taxes, insurance. Let's say the insurance. Well, let's say tax. Let's say taxes was $200 a month. Let's say the same for insurance. Let's say there was an HOA for $100 a month, right? So we put that in there. Uh, and then let's say we paid the GC separately, and let's say we paid them 20%. Well, 20% on 73,680, we do the math. That's a little over four. It's almost 15,000. We're just going to call it 14.5 for the moment. Let's say we had 4 draw fees from a lender at 200 each. We'll put that in there. And oh, by the way, when the lender wires us the draws, we get charged a bank fee for an incoming wire. So let's say there was 4 of them and they were $25 fees each. Now that's $100. And you can see these little things that it's easy to, when the hard money lender gives you a budget, they don't always think about all these little things, but these little things are affecting your bottom line. So what you'll notice is, this is kind of expensive for a cosmetic, but anyway, $90,000, 109 with contingency. So I call it cosmetic. This is a little more than cosmetic, but here's the thing. You'll see my cost per square foot is just under 41 a square foot, but with the contingency alone added $8 a square foot. Okay, there's a difference between 40 and 49 a square foot. And then when you go to the project, you'll notice once you add all the soft costs, the permitting costs, the landscaping, it's not a $41 a square foot project. It's a $60 a square foot project and change. And with contingency, we're up to 72. And then this is how people get screwed up. They go into a project expecting this, and I'm highlighting it green, and then reality ends up being this. And this has happened to us. So that's why I'm emphasizing that. This is very valuable because it's easy to think this is what you're doing, and this is where reality ends up being, and that's not a good place to be. Okay, so that's just a high level about how our budget works. So you could see it. Um, the power of a quality budget cannot be overstated. The more detail you put in up front, the less surprises you're going to have later. And that's important because when you do rehabbing or building, you're going to have surprises. So the more you can mitigate it up front, the better off you're going to be. So, hope you found this helpful. Please feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe, and I will see you around.